Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Tanya Holmes Sutton. I am the Network to Transform Teaching Director for Clark County, Nevada, for the Nevada National Board Network. I am also a member of the Board of Directors for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, and I am also President-elect of the UNLV Alumni Association, the Education Chapter. Thank you to Mr. Mason and the UNLV College of Education faculty for sharing your work with us. I join you here today to not only show support of the work of my alma mater, but also to recognize and celebrate the work of our students and those that will become the decision makers of tomorrow. It is my pleasure to recognize today a UNLV College of Education student who is the very essence of dedication and persistence. Ms. Hannah Kelley, would you please join me on stage? Ms. Kelley is a senior pursuing her degree in secondary education. She was selected in April 2016 as one of only 54 college students nationwide to win the prestigious Truman Scholar Award. Selected for stellar academic and leadership performance, recipients are awarded a $30,000 scholarship towards graduate school, as well as the opportunity to participate in professional development programming to help prepare them for careers in public service. Hannah knew she wanted to be a teacher to give back to the community and has said, "Hearing words about improving public education, being an agent of change, and giving a lifetime to public service, that's been the purpose of my life." After completing her bachelor's degree, Hannah is looking forward to starting her teaching career in Southern Nevada, the same community where she herself earned her education, followed by graduate school and a career in public service. I am honored to be here today as a graduate of the College of Education to recognize Hannah Kelley, an undergraduate student with the drive, dedication, passion, and potential to see and be that agent of change. I thank you, Ms. Kelley, and look forward to all that lies ahead for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Our next speaker this afternoon is Dr. Steve Canavero, Superintendent of Public Education at the Nevada Department of Education. Dr. Canevero's background lies in evaluation and planning as a teacher, principal, as well as the previous director of the State Public Charter School Authority. Here to share with us today to provide an update on Nevada's strategic vision for Nevada to become the fastest improving state in the nation and more, I welcome to the stage Dr. Steve Canavero.
Yeah. Thank you, Poonam, for the shout out. I appreciate, yes. Thanks again for the shout out. I already tried to yield my time to the former panel, but Dean Metcalf said I couldn't. Serious appreciations to Dean Metcalf and UNLV for hosting this second now Summit on Nevada Education. Deeply appreciative for UNLV's commitment to bringing us all together and for Dean Metcalf's hard work and his team's hard work for putting this together. Welcome all of the elected officials. I see a number of which in the audience today. I see Superintendent Skorkowski as well. Great to see you, sir. It's wonderful to work with Superintendent Skorkowski. He's a great man. He's a wonderful partner. That's absolutely, he deserves that. He deserves that. Woo woo. There we go. Thank you, Poonam, again. Thank you, Poonam. So as I was reflecting on this sort of conversation today, looking at Dean Metcalf's vision for this conference, the focus forward, the innovation, the sort of next generation work, it really settled with me in a lot of the conversations that I've been having around the state, having in our schools, having with your principals, having with your teachers, having with policymakers as well. And really, it's kind of struck a chord around leadership. And so today, I'm not going to delve into really specific strategy work or Zoom or Victory or those updates. Instead, I'm going to sort of take an opportunity here to share some experience that I've had at a young age in a sport that I really, really enjoy, that I think is eminently applicable to our work today. So regardless of the size of your team, regardless of the work that you're engaged in, your leadership matters. And I would offer that it matters more now for our state than ever. So let's talk a little bit about sort of possible, impossible versus hard work. I love Yosemite, and if you haven't been to Yosemite or you haven't spent a significant amount of time in Yosemite, I suggest you ought to. It, to me, holds an absolute special place for me, for my family, and it will continue to be a national park, a spot that we'll go to. And I grew up with a real interest in climbing, and I happened across a magazine at some point, and I became really interested in rock climbing, this notion of seeing these people on these cliffs, and I thought, this is amazing, absolutely amazing. I got to do this. I found a mentor at a young age being early high school, that helped me understand what climbing was, what climbing could be, and the ethics and the respect, the safety, the love for the mountains. And I was able to go through high school with this mentor. And I was fortunate to have some experiences that scared the living heck out of me very early, which instilled quite a bit of safety and a real commitment to being safe. But Yosemite is the epicenter, where American rock climbing, and in many cases international rock climbing, modern rock climbing, really came to fruition. And in the 1930s, the 1940s, folks would climb in Yosemite, all over Yosemite, and they would oftentimes come in for the Sierra Club outings from San Francisco, come in, find a spire, climb up the rocks, find some way to the top with a lasso or something, and then they would claim that summit. And that's really the evolution of rock climbing early in Yosemite, early in our nation in the 30s and 40s. It wasn't until like the mid-50s that folks began to explore, early 50s, folks began to explore other cliffs around Yosemite. But those early pioneer climbers looked up at Half Dome at the end of the valley, and they said, no, that's impossible. There's no mental model to go up that thing. And we have models to go up these spires, these other slabs across and all over Yosemite. It wasn't until 1957 that this man climbed that route in red. Royal Robbins, he and a team were the first folks to climb something of that scale. And it was 1957 that they did it, and essentially demonstrating to everybody at that time and to the global community that, Half Dome was not impossible. It was just really, really, really hard. And here he is in nylon and cotton and shoes that you'd have a tough time walking the sidewalk in, making it up the cliff of Half Dome, the face of Half Dome. It took him just a little over a week's time, starting at the base and making it all the way to the top. 1957. Interestingly, if you think or consider Half Dome to be impossible, then my goodness, El Cap. And if you are not familiar with El Capitan, El Cap is right there in the valley floor to ceiling. 3,000 vertical feet, absolutely flint hard granite. And there's no way. If Half Dome's impossible, this is doubly impossible. Interesting backstory, and if folks have any interest at all in climbing history and literature, I've got plenty of books to recommend. But interesting backstory is that two men, Royal Robbins was one, and Warren Harding was the other. They were both sort of competing to demonstrate what was possible. And with Royal Robbins demonstrating that Half Dome was possible, Warren Harding then committed to demonstrating that we could climb El Capitan. So in 1957, he starts. He goes through partner after partner after partner after partner. He gets shut down. The Park Service shuts him down because it's too much of a circus for people watching him. He gets a permit to start back up again. All the rudimentary techniques that you would believe to be in play in 1958, and some that they just had to make up. They just made up. Ingenuity, right? Forward thinking, innovation. These guys had a problem. They created wheeled carts to haul stuff up. that face. But in 1958, that's Warren Harding at the top. In 1958, after 45 consecutive days, starting at the base of the nose, all the way 3,000 vertical feet to the top, 45 consecutive days later, Warren Harding tops out. The whole time he had people asking him, soliciting a rescue for him because they thought, he's in the middle of a storm, they're out of water, they're out of food, they planned for 20 days, he's up there for 45. Every time he waves them off, nope, they're going for it, they're going to do it, and they're going to complete it. 45 days in 1958. It wasn't impossible. Again, it was just really, really hard. The well-dressed gentleman on the left, bottom left, the Stone Masters, they called it. That's a colorful era in rock climbing in the 60s, as you can imagine, in 70s. Wasn't until the mid-70s that these three gentlemen started at the base of the nose, that route, the same route that Warren Harding took 45 days, and they completed it in less than 24 hours. So we suddenly had someone testing again what was possible. No longer did it take 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get up the nose. These gentlemen showed to the world that it could be done in less than 1 day. Then the woman on the right is Lynn Hill. Again, in the mid-90s, about 20 years after the three gentlemen scaled the nose in less than 24 hours, a number of people scaled the nose in less than 24 hours. A nose in a day, they call it. But she was the first human being to start at the base and to finish within 1 day and not use artificial means of ascension. She did it entirely free. That doesn't mean without a rope, but that means that she does the entire thing, the entire 3,000 feet, with nothing other than her hands and her feet. I think it's been done entirely free like that, maybe 3 to 4 times since. Absolutely impossible. No one's going to free it. Well, in about 30 years, it went from 45 days possible to free climbing it in under a day, and now they do it in 2 hours. Okay, so I grew up climbing. I'm in high school climbing. I go to college. I meet my roommates. We're climbers. We train. We climb. We study a little bit. We train. We climb. And in 1991, I'm 18, and that's my high point, right there. My buddy and I, my climbing partner and I, we're on a ledge. It's called Crescent Ledge. It's this, big ledge, 400 feet off the ground, shaped like a crescent. And we're standing there. And we've got our bags, huge, these big bags, no wheeled carts. Those days were long gone, although we'd probably like them. Big bags full of water and sleeping bags and food and gear, all the modern equipment that college kids could eat top ramen for months in order to afford to buy. And we're on that ledge in 1991, and we're having a conversation. And the conversation goes something like this. If only the weather were better. If only we had 2 extra days. If we're delayed right now because of this weather, what's going to happen if it rains when we get 2 days from now? What's going to happen? What if it rains? Folks, that morning, that dawn in spring in Yosemite was gorgeous. I don't think any weather forecaster would have said that it was cloudy, but to us, it was threatening rain. To us, it was raining. It really wasn't. It was likely humid. But we sat on that ledge and we said, what if it rains? What if it continues to rain? If only we had better storm gear. If only we had more time. An hour later, we were on the ground. It's only 400 feet down. We were on the ground, hiking all of our stuff back to the car. Big, heavy, heavy bags. I got into the car. I was headed back to the house. He was headed somewhere else. And so I had a nice long drive back to San Luis Obispo. And the whole time I felt about 1.5 inches tall. Because I knew what had happened 400 feet off the ground on that day, I knew that we had convinced each other that this climb, this route, was absolutely impossible. There was no way we were going to be able to make it. No way. The weather, we didn't have enough food if we got delayed. What if it rained? If onlys, what ifs, if. Collectively, we had convinced each other it was not possible, so therefore 400 feet back down to the ground. The ground is a lot easier to walk on. It's a lot more comfortable than it is on the climb. 400 feet. So on the right-hand side, this is a different route. This is called Zodiac. It's another good route for people who are trying to climb El Cap for their first time. 3 months later, I'm on this section of El Cap, and this section of El Cap is just phenomenal. If you do go to Yosemite or have been there, do yourself a treat and walk up along the base of El Cap. Stay a bit away, and then when you get to this section of the wall, go right up against it. Something that drops from the top of El Cap will land 100 feet away from you. It is entirely overhanging. 50 feet on this section of the wall are the difference between being in a waterfall or being inside the waterfall looking out. 50 feet. 3 months after that conversation that my partner and I had where we went down, 400 feet up, we went down. 2,600 feet above us, too much. 3 months later, we're here. I'm on the wrong 50 feet. My partner's on the right side of the 50 feet. And I'm getting sopping wet from a thunderstorm that's crashing above us. My partner is dry. He's still running the rope up, finishing the pitch, we call it, the rope length. Over some time, he gets to the anchor. He secures it. He comes back down, and I'm just drenched. It's no longer raining. The rain has stopped. The thunderstorm has moved on, and it's dusk. And we have a conversation. The conversation goes something like this. I'm sopping wet. If only I had gotten my storm gear stuff out, I would be drier, but I'm sopping wet. Literally, I had water in my shoes. Like, I'm wet. What if it gets cold tonight? What if it freezes? What if we get this kind of a thunderstorm 2 days from now, and how do we traverse that roof pitch? How do we get back down? More if-onlys, what-ifs. And my buddy, he turns to me, and I'll never forget, he says, Steve, it's okay. It's okay. Let's set up here for the night and see what tomorrow brings. All right. So we set up there for the night. Next day was perfectly clear, beautiful days, and 2.5 days later, we summited our first climb on El Cap. A remarkable, remarkable experience. But when you're this high, when you're 400 feet up, it is so much easier to go down than to complete. So I'm kind of pointing out, these conversations happen all over. And unfortunately, I've been on the side where I've been needing strength, and I've been on the side to provide strength. So as I'm talking with folks and having conversations and I'm listening, I hear a lot of leadership questions. They don't come out as leadership questions, but they are leadership questions. And I reflected, and I made this connection a few months ago. It's like, this is where this is connecting back to these past experiences where, as we talk to folks about implementing, we talk to folks about the massive work that this state is doing from 2011, 2013, 2015, and we say, wow, this is a heavy, heavy lift. And that when we declare that Nevada will be the fastest improving state in the nation, there are folks who are saying, that's impossible. And I understand why. Because it's just really, really hard. I'm of the opinion that we're 400 feet off the ground. Like that conversation that I had with my partner. Folks, it took a lot of effort and a lot of energy to get 400 feet off the ground. All that packing, all that gear, all that driving, all the time, all of the opportunity to get to the face, to climb up the face, just to get to 400 feet is a tremendous amount of effort and work and commitment. I'm convinced we're 400 feet off the ground. We. How do I know that? So how do I know we're 400 feet off the ground if we're going to plant a stake and say we are going to be the fastest improving state in the nation? We are going to be the fastest improving state in the nation. How do I know that we can do it? We can do it. I know we can. Let me start by saying I know we can do it because we have leaders like Superintendent Skorkowski. We have fantastic teachers in our classrooms. We have as much talent as any state who has previously claimed that title, and that our children are entirely as capable as any other state in the union, regardless of circumstance or matched on circumstance. We can do it. We can do it. Here's an example, just a piece of equity, a conversation around equity. If you look here, you see our Hispanic Latino students, and you see our EL students outperforming California and Connecticut. Students with disabilities, free and reduced price lunch students. Folks, we're 400 feet off the ground. We're making progress. We're growing. We still got 2,600 feet to go. Look at African American Black students. We know this. We're 400 feet up off the ground. We're 400 feet up. Look at 8th grade science. We were recognized with Utah and Tennessee, 2 other states, as star states on 8th grade NAEP science for the gap narrowing between where we're performing and the national average. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody's going to suggest that we are. We're 400 feet off the ground, though. We've made commitments. We're working towards improvements, and we're seeing some of these improvements. 4th grade, relatively flat, but if you look in the data, you see the Hispanic students are increasing in our 4th grade at a good rate. 400 feet off the ground. Graduation rates. How can we be the fastest improving state in the nation? Well, it's kind of here we are. We're 4th. Are we graduating enough students? No. Can we graduate more? Absolutely. And we got evidence right here to suggest why. We can do it. We're 4th fastest improving. And let me tell you, the competition will do nothing but get more difficult, right? Because if you've got your buddies around you and they're slower than you are, it's pretty easy to beat them. But if they're training with you to try to beat you, you're going to have to work as hard as they are, plus. And I can tell you, when I go to national conferences or national work, when we get together with other states, I can tell you Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, they're working hard. And we have a lot of the same tools and the same work that they have that we're already working on. 4th fastest. Are we graduating enough kids? No. But we're improving. 4th fastest from 11 to 15. This is an interesting data point, and I bring this one up because of the STEM conversation that we have, I think, as a state. And really, it's a conversation around expectations. An expectation gap that we always don't see. When we look at the slide deck on the diploma standards, there's an expectation gap there as well, and that we're learning more about. It's the expectation gap of what we expect in high school versus what the workforce and post-secondary's expectations are of our K-12 system. This is a student story. 4,000 students in Nevada. These are the ACT results. We know where we land on the ACT results. I think the more we talk about our relative position last on these results, the more we convey the Half Dome and El Cap mentality that that's impossible, the more we can translate it into student-based stories, and the more we can talk about this as a really functional use of data that is honest. 4,000 kids in Nevada meet the ACT's highest sort of standard for STEM interest. They got a big kind of scale of STEM interest when students take the ACT. However, a student responds to some questions in the survey, sort of place them on the scale from, I'm curious to I'm interested, and I'm likely to actually go into a STEM degree and pursue the STEM field, right? So the highest category. 4,000 of our students hit that mark. 4,000 kids hit the highest category in our state. 1 in 4 of them hit all 4 proficiency levels. 1 in 4 met all 4 proficiency standards. Nationally, it's about 41%. So we're about 24%. Nationally, it's about 41%. It's an expectation gap. Here we have students telling us, I'm interested in STEM. I'm gonna pursue STEM. I'm gonna be an engineer. Mom, dad, grandpa, anyone who will listen. But we know that 3 of those 4 students are gonna face tremendous barriers, right? We know those barriers in pursuing and working through their degree to a STEM field and a STEM career. We know that the 1 out of 4 who is proficient in all 4, they will likely have challenges as well. But for those 3 out of 4 students who said they were interested, we know the future that they face. Okay. All right, Steve, so what are you saying? Well, if we're going to go from 400 to 500 to 600, remember climbing, the more you think about the summit, the less likely you are to be successful. The more you think about the next 6 feet, the more likely you are to be successful. So how do we move from where we are today to where we all envision, I hope, for our state to be, which is the fastest improving state in the nation? First, I firmly believe stay the course. When you look at the work that's being done, and again, I talk about the work from 2011 to 2015 on the policy side, from the governor, from the legislature, all the way down to the classroom, stay the course. We have, as a state, been able to weather the storm that tried to diminish our standards and tried to blow up our evaluation system. We still have those. Stay the course. We have tremendous policy in place that it also includes accountability, and that's an uncomfortable, I hear you, I've heard a lot about this, uncomfortable proposition. We talk about 3rd grade reading, we talk about achievement school districts, we talk about 394, innovation. It's important for us to lead with your teams, not only with strength, you gotta be my partner who said it's gonna be okay, and at times you've gotta have humility to recognize that we don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. I've got to come most of the time to our practitioners for the answers. They have the answers. We have to have both, and the humility that we need to partner to get this done. Not just carve ourselves off or move ourselves into the corner. This is going to take us all to lean in. The last 2 things quickly is alignment. I mentioned this expectation gap. This is where I've been spending quite a bit of time and where we'll have some legislative a component of a bill to do this is around aligning those graduation requirements, that grad standard, that diploma, that what should be a certificate of value and entry into a post-secondary successful field, aligning those with industry and our higher ed expectations. But I also say alignment is critically important for all of us to utilize data, focus in on those areas that need support, where students need support, or where the policy environment needs support, or where funding, and really get surgical and precise about where you put your efforts in order to align those efforts towards outcomes. And then the last I just put up here, just before sending this, is that I'm an average, and this is being very generous, an average climber. I was an average climber. Now I'm just a dad who sometimes takes his girls out climbing so they can instill a joy for climbing and for the mountains that I have. I used to be an average climber. The only reason why we were able to get up El Cap as often and frequently as we did, or Half Dome or other climbs, is just because I'm plain stubborn, just to keep going. And that's what it's going to take for us as leaders if we're going to choose to stay the course and move from 4 to 5 to 600 feet. We got to have the resolve to do it. So I want to appreciate you sharing, or letting me share this last 20 so minutes with you. And I look forward to having you all as partners, as we all strive to do our work in such a way that within 5 years, Nevada will be the fastest improving state in the nation. Thank you very much.